Today's random phrase generator is, there is no I in team. I have so much to say about this particular phrase because there is an I in win, accomplishment, fulfillment, celestial, and a bunch of other words that I could accomplish. But I'm not going to talk about how many more I's come in other words. I want to talk about actually this contrarian idea that I have that has to do with what age we are currently in. And so I'm going to kind of give a history over the last 200 years and kind of like where we have arrived leading up from that 200-year transition. In helping, I think, prove my point that you don't need a team anymore in order to win, in order to create the abundant lifestyle or the desired outcome that you want. And it has to do with what age we're currently in. So, 200 years ago, you could say that the first real tangible, globally impactful age that we entered into was the industrial age. And you could say that any age kind of starts at a certain time, but you could say that it actually begins when it's massively adopted by the masses. And so you could say that, for the last, we had an exploration age, and that was the age where a lot of immigrants were coming over from Europe, and they were, they were migrating basically, or coming over into the States in trying to find freedom. So you could say that when that all kind of came to a head was, in 1776, and you could say that the age of exploration was 300 years before that, all the way up until the age of exploration. Then you enter, you could say an expansionist age, where the 13 colonies expand into what we now have as the 50 states. And in that time, you have a bunch of different technologies that come in thanks to the expansionist age. And again, these are the two names that I was just like coming up with for reference here. This is where you had railroad tracks, you had the Pony Express, you had ways for expediting communication through telegraphy, and these different forms of innovations or technologies. And then we started to kind of transition from the expansionist age into the industrial age, which we all know is really kind of like started in the early 1900s, but really took on full form thanks to the two world wars. So, 15, 20 years later, World War I happens. About 20 years after that, we have World War II that happens. And this is where, you have factories mass producing things at ridiculous scales. And what it does is, thanks to war, there's a ton of technology and innovation that came in. So then we go into the industrial age. And the industrial age basically goes all the way up until probably early 2000s, maybe even 2000, 2001. And like back in, I think it's 1986 is when the internet actually started. But it really didn't kind of like hit the masses until 1996. And then it was really like massively adopted around early 2000s. And that's when we transitioned out of the industrial age into the information age. And obviously the information age had with it a bunch of new technologies and innovations. And they oftentimes have to do with the speed at which communication is sped up in order to get a desired result. So usually the technology has to do around communication, and it also has to do around speeding up or more effectively communicating in such a way where the desired outcome is achieved in a tighter time frame. So you could say that like exploration age, it took a really, really long time to communicate, and it took a really, really long time to get the desired result, which was just like finding land. And then you have the expansionist age, which they created the railroads and transportation and the Pony Express and these ways to like further communicate. But again, it was a tighter time frame, but it was expanding. Then you had the industrial age, which was you were communicating in such a way where you increased, you created these new innovations in transportation, like planes and fast boats and cars. And you did also in like mass production. And again, tightened the feedback loop or tightened the communication chain in order to get a desired result, which is, in our case, it was winning wars. Okay, so now we have the information age. The information age makes it so that communication is super, super tight. But we're still having a problem with getting our desired result because there's like all these different programs and platforms, and they don't really they're kind of jumbled together and they don't really communicate really, really well. And so what we have now like 50 different ways on how to communicate with people. And there's not really like one and done way to effectively do it in order to get the result that we want. So then, late 2000s, so we're like 2008, 9, 10, and then early 2010s, 11, 12, 13, we start having like social media. And social media, again, tightens that communication loop even further, and it helps to transmit truth, or at least information, at a more rapid rate. And I would say that I don't know if that's a new age, but I would say that it's a more evolved state of the information age. Or maybe what you could call it is you could call the first one not the information age, but the computing age. And then the second, which would be social media, would be the information age, where it's not that truth is being distilled, it's just information is being, transported a lot quicker. Okay, so then we have the 2010s, and we all know what happened from 2010 to 2022, 2023, until along came a language learning model called ChatGPT. And there had been AI that had been created in the early 2000s and had been really utilized by, you could say big companies in the late 2000s and then the early 2010s. But it really hasn't been globally accepted or accepted by the masses and embraced and used by the masses until 2023, when ChatGPT came out, and it was as easy as searching for Google, but now you're talking with what seems to be like an artificial intelligence. It's not, but it felt like it. And what it do? It tightened the communication chain even closer and allowed us to get our desired inputs faster. And now I would say that because of APIs, all of the different, you could say agents and the GPTs and the platforms and the way that you can automate workflows, but do it in an autonomous way where you can provide dynamic conditions in creating these workflows. What ends up happening is, this is supposed to be 5 minutes, as to why there is no I in team, but there is an I in win and fulfillment, is the fact that we exited the information age and we have entered into what Peter Diamandis calls the age of infinite leverage. And this age is, as Elon Musk says, one of the most exciting, if not the most exciting time in human history to be alive, because of infinite leverage. And so if we were to go back to all of the different ages, expansionist, exploration, expansionist, industrial, computing, information, and now into infinite leverage, the age of infinite leverage, you'll see that all of them needed a form of leverage. They needed a source of leverage, a form of leverage in order to get them the desired result. And it always relied on people. That was one of the biggest ones. Labor was that and capital. And these are two things that Naval Ravikant calls permission-based leverage. Labor, you need to ask people or you need to get people's help. Or capital, you need to get investing or funding. And the way that the old world used to do it was to just say, like, we'll just enslave people. And so we've taken care of the labor problem and in that form of leverage. And what we'll do is we won't actually finance anything. We'll just use our power and fear in order to get that labor to do that thing. And we'll just basically keep them surviving. We'll feed them rations, food, we'll put them in destitute situations, but basically just enough for them to allow us to utilize that form of leverage. And then you can see how over time, and as we've exited and entered into new ages, we've needed we've needed the form of leverage, labor, more and more and more. We've needed less and less and less of it, I should say. We've needed less and less and less of it over time as we've exited and entered into one stage, because we have equipment and resources that are working together in one way, shape, or form to get us that desired result, thanks to a shortened way of communicating, and then using equipment in such a way where it scales human output or labor. So you could do one thing, which is you could hammer in, a nail into a 2x4, or you could get a nail gun and you could shoot that 2x4 up, no problem, without any energy. Or you could use you could get like an automatic nail gun and have it like put on a board, and it just goes and it does it itself automatically, precisely, perfectly, a set amount of, a distance between each of the nails. And so you could see how one person now, and then that one person could just press a button and can do it across 1,000 different 2x4s all at the same time, because he's just pressing a button on one giant machine that's putting nails. Okay, point is that I'm trying to make is you've always need a form of leverage in every single one of these ages, except every single one of these ages required permission-based leverage, capital and labor. And both of these things require people. In other words, you need people in order to win. There's no I in team, okay? And I would say that I would refute that now, because as we've entered into the age of infinite leverage, for the longest time, it was asking the question, who can intake or consume the most amount of knowledge and be able to recall or regurgitate it as accurately and as quickly as possible in real time to solve a very specific problem. Answering that question is what defined a successful person in different industries. So you'll take like a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant, right? Then you go into the computing age or the information age, and you could say that whoever could ask the right question to the internet and get that information and then act on that information the fastest is what determined who is successful. So you'll take like internet companies, or you'll take people that can ask questions to Google and extrapolate the right data in order to determine like what are trends that are happening and how are they going to merge and converge onto one another, and then how can I uniquely exploit this information as quickly as possible in such a way where I can, basically become successful. However, when it comes to the age of infinite leverage, and we now have artificial intelligence, language learning models, APIs, automated workflows that you can improve autonomously over time. What it's allowed you to do is what it has done is it has shifted the question from whoever can ask the right questions to the internet and then act on that information the quickest. It's now changed it to whoever can engineer the right prompts to get their desired outcome is what now determines a successful person. Okay? Whoever can engineer the right prompts to get their desired outcomes. And now we've brought it full circle. What has AI done? It has bridged the gap when it comes to communication so that you're getting instantaneous feedback. You're getting instantaneous responses. And the responses are only as effective as your prompt, you asking the right questions. And so with the right questions in hand and AI, you can have it engineer and utilize all forms of these two other forms of leverage, what are called, as Naval Ravikant calls it, permissionless leverage, which is media and coding or programming. Both things that when he wrote these articles, AI was non-existent. And AI now can do both. It can create the own media and it can create coding, or it can create programs that do the coding for you to create automated workflows that you can autonomously improve over time. And so going back to why is it that I, Carrie, have this contrarian philosophy, this thought that we don't need teams anymore. We don't. There's no such thing as teams. But there is an I in win and fulfillment and achievement and accomplishment. It has to do with the fact that we are now in the greatest time in human history, the age of infinite leverage, where we, as a people, if we can figure out how to design the right prompts in order to get the desired outputs, I could, with Starlink internet, get onto Grok or ChatGPT and say, I'm in the middle of nowhere. I want to go buy 10 acres of land in Nebraska. And I need you to help me know how to do piping, how to build out a garden. And I want you to help me get all the UV panels that I need in order to run the whole thing off the grid and total solar. And I want to live out there with my family. And then I also want to I want to create a little shop, and I'm going to need all these different tools and equipment. And basically, with your interaction and desired and the correct engineered prompts, you can ask all the right questions, get all the responses that you need in order to create that entire life without anybody else. And I think as long as you have your family and your loved ones, plus hobbies and things to and for fun things to explore and things that are surrounded by you, I don't think that there is. I think that saying of there is no I in team, connoting that you're always going to be better with the team, is false. I think you can find real fulfillment, accomplishment, and a sense of winning without a team, because we are now in this age of infinite leverage. So that's right. And I don't see a team as a family. That's totally different. Okay, so the random phrase generated for today is, there is no I in team.